Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome into Guest Blade episode number 35. And today's episode is brought to you by Mr. Will Moon, actually. This is a knife that Will personally purchased because Will's not just a knife maker, but he's also a knife collector and he likes to get cool, interesting things here and there. And this is number 2 of the Neil Blackwoods that he owns right now. And this was the one that excited me the most. I actually almost bought this the day that Neil put this up on his Facebook page. I hemmed and hawed just, 5 minutes too long. Will swooped in and bought it, and I didn't get it. And now I really, really wish I would have gotten it, because this is an amazing, amazing knife. This is a Neil Blackwood Mini Skirmish. Now, when you look at this thing, you look how thick it is. I mean, it's over an inch thick. You look at it and go, how can anybody call this a mini? Because yes, the regular Skirmish, the full-size Skirmish, is quite a bit bigger. Now, what's amazing about this is when you look at it, because of the huge belly in this recurve blade, the thickness in which everything is made, it looks like a much bigger knife than it really is. Yet, honestly, it's only a 3.5-inch blade. Let's put this next to a couple of others from my collection that are 3.5-inch blades. And you will see that, yeah, it's the same length. It just looks tremendously bigger because of the overbuilt look that it has. Then we bring in good old Kirby Lambert, Orion NGT, also a 3.5-inch. Now we're getting into something that looks a little bit more the same size. It's thick, it's chunky, it's beefy, it's bold. And for those that own Grahams, here is my Graham Razel. Also the same length. But you've got a bit more bulk and beefiness in the Blackwood. Now the difference between the Blackwood and all of those others is this is a completely hand-built knife. Not only that, but every single component, everything in this entire knife is entirely made by Neil. The only things that are in this knife that are not made by Neil are these hex head screws. That's it. Everything in here was completely manipulated, completely made, everything by Neil's hands. And that's the difference between buying, say, a $700 or $800 custom knife and buying a $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 custom knife, is how much of the maker really goes into it. Because it's not really about the components. I mean, yes, the ivory is expensive. Titanium's not necessarily, cheap. And S35 VN steel, not necessarily cheap. But it's not really, you're not going to pay $1,000 for a knife just because it has those things. You're paying the money that you're paying because of the time and the craftsmanship that's going into it. Let's start here with the blade. So here you've got an S35 VN steel blade, 3.5-inch, that is absolutely gorgeous with a nearly perfect satin. I mean, it just looks astounding. Great finish work on here, but also notice the grind work. This is all done by hand. This is a freehand ground knife. He is not having a machine doing his grinding. He is not setting it up with a jig and just zip, 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 zip. Everything is done freehand. And that really means that no two knives that you ever buy from him will ever be 100% alike. You could order 5 of this exact knife in this exact configuration, and there's going to be little differences between all 5, especially in the way the blade is ground. Now again, Neil has been doing this for a really long time, so he has perfected it to the point where you may not even notice the differences. They may be very, very subtle, but they will be there because everyone is done by hand. I really like the feel in the hand. It is again, it's a thick, beefy knife, but the way his ergos are set, it just fits wonderfully. Now, the only experience I had had prior to this with any Neil Blackwoods was just the Benchmade Skirmish, the collaboration he did with Benchmade, and that is still, to this day, considered to be one of the best knives that Benchmade ever created. It was a fantastic value for what it was. It was just a big-ass son bitch. It was hard to carry it, And me, I don't like tip-down carry, so I ended up getting rid of mine only because of that reason. When you look at a real custom Blackwood, you understand why this knife, this was about $16.50. He says, if somebody were to order the exact same thing right now, it'd be $16.50. There's a tremendous difference when you pick up a high-end, full hand-built custom from him versus any kind of production knife. You've got a 1/4-inch diameter pivot. Monster pivot in here. He believes in strength over everything else. It doesn't matter what kind of knife he's building. It's always going to be about strength. And as a testament to that, he refuses to use bearings. And I have pushed and pushed and pushed. I've had a wonderful relationship with Neil now for a while, and I find him to be a very interesting cat. He will not do bearings. He says, I've seen too many failures. And through his time dealing with Benchmade, Benchmade has spent a lot of money testing a lot of knives for failures in every various way that you can think of. And he says, I'll be honest with you, I've seen way too many fail at that critical area, at the pivot, that I see no need to put a small pivot and a whole bunch of bearings around it when I can make a knife just as smooth by using washers and bushings. And I'll tell you this, it is smooth. Now, it's not fast like a bearing knife would be, but I don't think that's really the point of this particular build. He uses Teflon bushings that he makes himself. You got to realize, when he goes down to the smallest thing like that, making your own Teflon washers, there's a certain degree of perfection that you should expect out of the knives. Now, I've talked to a lot of people about Neil Blackwood knives, and if you go back just a few years ago, he was one of the names that, it was kind of like angels would sing whenever you'd say his name or open up one of his knives. And now we're not seeing as much of a presence around his name in the collector's community. And I started inquiring as to why. I'm like, I don't get it. Neil does absolutely incredible work. I mean, you look at this S bolster. You look at the anodizing and the finishing on the titanium. Even putting that little bit of finish on the stop pin. The extra little touch of having the red in between the ivory and the blue. Sculpting a pocket clip completely custom made that's the shape of the knife. All of these things really tell you what a quality maker he is, but we're not hearing his name as often as we used to. And the simple fact of the matter is, every single person I asked about this said it's because of the secondary market. During the time when the secondary market was really on an upswing, and there were certain makers where their knives were commanding a premium. This knife, just a handful of years ago, you couldn't have touched for under $3,000. And the unfortunate thing is, from what I gather, again, I don't have the personal experience in this part of it, but from what I gather, a handful of makers decided, you know what, screw this. All these dealers and other people shouldn't be making more money on a damn knife than I am. It's unfair. I'm the one putting all the hard work in, and I'm going to sell them direct, and I'm going to get the extra money. And Neil was one of those. So you would order from Neil. You would wait a long time to get a knife because everything's made by hand, and you were paying a super premium price. You were paying $2,000, $3,000 for a knife. And then the market kind of crashed. Certain makers, their market crashed. Other makers started going up. It's an ebb and flow thing. We're seeing that even right now. And all of a sudden, people that had invested a crazy amount of money, not from another collector on the secondary market, not from a dealer that was being greedy and trying to profit as much as possible, but directly from the source, directly from the maker. The price was so high that now they don't have the same value in their knife. They couldn't turn around and sell it or trade it for what they have into it. So a lot of people became discouraged with these certain makers, and Neil just fell into that group along with many, many others. Neil has now swung it back the other way. I mean, you can't go from charging, double your price to half of the original price. You can't make such a huge swing. But what he's done is he's really brought the prices back down to the reasonable level where they used to be. And I still feel that you're getting a lot for your money. I think that you could easily spend more money on this knife, the way that it's made, and feel that you've gotten a great value. So I think now we're starting to see a little bit of an uptick now in Neil's popularity, and we're going to start seeing a bit more of that as it ramps up throughout the course of 2014. He's releasing new models. He's got the Bruiser. He's got the Flatliner edition. He's got some really cool shit coming out. He's doing multi-tools and things like that. Really hitting the sectors of the market that are really, really hot right now. And we're going to be seeing a lot of great things from him. But if you've never handled a Blackwood in your hands, then it's hard to really understand. You see a lot of pictures, and that's the thing. He was so popular for so long. You know, maybe people just got tired of seeing his name. People got tired of seeing the knives because they don't have it. All they're seeing is pictures, and you know, they just move on to other things, and that happens in any industry. What you've got here is an incredible bolster lock. This thing is built like a friggin' tank. Look at the thickness of the titanium, and look at that lockup. Now, this is not broken in, by the way. It's brand new, basically. The anodizing is perfect. The finish work is perfect. Every line on this knife is amazing. And he's actually raised the ivory up above the titanium instead of blending it in. So you really get, you get a sensation that you have a bolster here. When you hold this in your hands, it just melts away into your hand. If you want to hold it back here, you've got some adequate jimping back here. It's not overly sharp. But when you throw your thumb up here, now you've got that fine control over the blade. He's just made an outstanding knife for the feel and fit in the hand. The components that he's using are fantastic. The sharpness is almost off the charts. I mean, this is a razor sharp knife. Again, Neil's been doing this a long-ass time. He knows how to make a knife right. He knows how to put a good edge on it. And now that we're seeing the prices going back down to where a lot of people felt that they should have stayed, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of the prolific collectors, the ones that we all look up to and we kind of monitor what they're buying to gauge maybe what our desires are going to be in the future. We're going to see a lot of those guys buying more and more Neil Blackwoods. The thing is, he's not putting out a hell of a lot of product right now. It's a knife here and there. And if you're not constantly checking his Facebook page, you're probably not even going to be alerted that he has anything new. So I would tell you this, go to his Facebook, sign up onto it, friend him up, whatever it is, and keep an eye out for what he's doing, because a lot of the stuff that he sells ends up going right away. And when you look at beauties like this, it's no wonder why. The color scheme is amazing. The finish work all the way through. Again, we'll give you some nice close-ups here. You see as the lock is engaging and it separates from the red G10 and the ivory. And then it creates almost a one-piece look as it comes back together. Focus. Back again over here. You can't feel it. It's a perfect transition from material to material. I like the fact that he has added a lanyard hole on there. It gives you the option to carry a lanyard if you want to. Beefy, thick back spacer, all done in titanium. Again, everything done by hand. That perfectly made pocket clip. Quarter-inch pivot. And then again, going back to that insane grind. Beautiful satin work, all hand-rubbed satin. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have at least 5 or 6 hours just in the satin finish. And it's when you reach this level of knife making that you can command these kind of prices. When you see a lot of these new guys coming out of the woodwork in their first, second, third year of making, and they're charging $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 for their knives, it can sometimes blur the lines, because that's kind of what you've just come to expect nowadays. And you really have to understand, when you're paying that premium amount of money, there should be a marked difference between you know, that level and the next level below. I love, love, love my Kirby Lambert. You guys know I'm a huge Kirby fan. But let's break down some of the differences here. Okay? Everything on a Lambert begins life with smart technology, whether it be a CNC or water jet. He does finish everything by hand. He fits everything by hand. He matches all of his components by hand. He does a great job of blending his materials. Then you get to the grind. Well, that's a simple fixture. He's setting it up on the fixture, and then just zzz, 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 and that's it. It's his grinds look really beautiful, and they look really technical, and he has spent a lot of time creating the look that he wants with the intersecting grinds and the flats. But once he's designed that, the dynamics of that are done, it's a simple fixture. This, there's not a straight line in that blade. Everything's curved, everything's just soft and just, you know, slick. And everything's done by hand, all freehand ground. That takes a lot more skill. You put them in your hand. I love how the Kirbys feel in my hand, whether it's my Blitz, whether it's my Orion, any of the other ones. But there's something about how he's melted the edges on this frame that just completely changes the feeling. These are both about the same thickness all the way around. Blade stock is very, very close. The titanium, the handles, everything's very close. This feels better. I don't get a hot spot from that clip like I do this one, where it comes out, swoops in, and then comes back out. This has the perfect amount of tension. It's set off perfectly. And it's flat on the outside. So when I'm holding it, if I were cutting into something and I'm having to really, really grip down, I don't have any hot spots. I don't have any pain. I don't have any discomfort. And everything about Neil's knife is perfectly finished. Now, I haven't done this side by side before we're going on camera. See, you see right in here. Kirby still does a great job, and I'm not knocking the man. But there's a difference here in the finishing of the steel, the components that you're not typically going to see. Now, that's the difference between an $800 or $900 knife, which is what this one would go for, or a $1,600 knife. It's the extra attention to detail. It's the extra handwork and the time involved in doing all of that handwork. So if that's the level that you're aspiring to, and that's where my collection is heading, I have now gotten a taste for the better luxury knives, the better hand-built quality products, and that's where I'm taking my collection. If that's the direction you're going in, you seriously need to take a good hard look at Neil's designs, see what appeals to you, and give him a call. He's probably one of the friendliest dudes you're ever going to talk to. And just bounce some ideas off him. Go, you know, I like the Skirmish, I like the Mini Skirmish, I like the Bruiser. You know, whatever it is. You know, maybe you've wanted to experiment with a certain material that no other maker would work with. Maybe he's up for that. Maybe you want to get into something that has this level of quality in the primary bevels and the main grinds. This is the guy that you want to go to. Forget everything that you've read, everything that you've seen, everything that you've heard. Look at the work that he's doing, the money he's charging for that amount of handwork. And I can't believe that anybody out there could say he's not in that top 10% of custom folding knife makers, period. So there you have it, guys. Neil Blackwood Mini Skirmish. Just a quick look at it. Well, quick, 19 minutes. That's not really quick, is it? For me, it is. And now, yes, I deeply regret not having picked this one up when I had the chance. And now I've firmly decided I'm going to have to place an order with Neil. Damn it. Central Florida's taken all my money between Todd Fisher, Frank Fisher, Stan Wilson, and now Neil. Holy shit. I guess I should just call up Reese Whelan and go, hey, Reese, build me a knife. That way, that whole area, maybe I've helped to pave a road in that area with all the money that I'm going to be spending. But, you know, it's amazing how that tight little area, they all live within like 30 miles of each other, create some of what I feel some of the best knives in the entire world. And they all have the same work ethic. They work pretty much dawn to dawn. They hardly ever sleep. They're always working and banging away in the shop and just trying to keep perfecting what it is they're already doing so well that I think sometimes they've got to blow their own minds. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here for now. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks again for watching.